All right, peeps, welcome to the Culture and People Cast. Today we have Cory Warfield on. Cory, in a few sentences, would you tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. So I am the waiter turned entrepreneur. I am a connector. I am a mentor for early and scaling startups, specifically in the tech space, but beyond. And I'm an avid Power LinkedIn user. You're muted now.
I know my user error on this episode so far, Cory. Like earlier, my alarm went off for no reason. Today, I'm muting for no reason. All right, let's keep this going. So, thank you, Cory, for being on, and I appreciate you and all you're doing for culture and people in the world of work. But what's the best thing for you about influencing this type of space in the world of work?
Absolutely. So I think there's a lot of perception around early stage companies needing to raise money. I try to flip that on its head. I'm all about bootstrapping. I'm all about kind of in kind and ways to be resourceful and scrappy. I think what I bring to the conversation is I'm very passionate about diversity and inclusion on a very deep level. I need to have different perspectives. I need to have people that won't agree with me. And typically the way that I can find that, and it's been it's really actually been a force multiplier for me so far in my couple of ventures and the ones that I help. Is just getting those people that push me in different directions or to think about things from the completely different perspective. And I think that's really helped cultivate listening skills and empathy and things of that nature. So I'd say those come to mind.
Yeah, accidentally or intentionally, have you had your own sort of personal board of directors over your career?
Do you mean like the Think and Grow Rich fantasy ones in
Yeah,
my
just,
mind?
people sort of put together, and that's why I say accidentally or intentionally, whereas sometimes, I found myself having, a strategic advisor I went to for this and a mentor for that and a friend for that and a sponsor for that, which you sort of put together as a little community.
I'd have to say no, and I went through a accelerator and then one of the only post accelerators globally, and they were both fairly bad experiences. And I had so many people, including people that have recently bankrupted billion-dollar companies, and people that have grown billion-dollar companies, and people that are worth billions of dollars. And all these people want to come in and tell you why your ideas are almost good and why you should just do things the way that worked for them 10 years ago. And then their competitor comes in and says, well, when they did this, I was doing this. And mentor whiplash is a real thing. None of the advice I ever followed from any of them was good advice as it pertained to myself or my concept. And once I stopped listening to them, is when I really started to see exponential growth. And it's now validated a lot of what I've done to just follow my heart, my inclinations. And I'm a very vibratory, energetic person, and I think other people can come in and mess with your trajectory or your frequency when you let them. So it's funny because I've now mentored probably over 100 companies myself, but one of the things I always tell them is anything I tell you is simply my thoughts, and don't act on it if it doesn't resonate with you. And I think when we talk about frequency and energy, that resonation is a really big part. So I've had people that have advised me for weeks and months at a time. I've probably benefited from all of them, even if I didn't listen to most of them.
Yeah, yeah, right. We're just sort of planting seeds that people need to water them like they need to. I'm in an accelerator right now for an app I'm working on. First accelerator I've been in. So just sort of looking at this process, give it a try, work out my idea. And we had mentor night, and one of the mentors said, "You should really give up now." And I hung up. I was like, "Well, that was thanks for the advice, but I'm going to keep working on this." Like I understood what his statement was, and like you said, though, you just need to sort of hold on to that seed and water it if you want or trash it if you don't.
I was put on suicide watch in my accelerator because a mentor told me something very similarly, and he had sold his company for about 100 and something $1 million in the ed tech space 8 years ago, and got very fortunate. I imagine, as far as I can tell, the guy was 3/4 of the way broke, in just a couple of years, and he told me the same thing. Maybe you should just give up. I think his comment was, if this doesn't work, it's like, are you kidding? That's not an option.
Yeah.
I've literally uprooted and changed my life, put my life savings into this. I've put on paper and spoken out to the world into existence exactly how this is going to work. What do you mean if this doesn't work? Like,
Yeah.
contingency plan. And I just got so upset that they really thought that there was a chance that I was going to do something crazy. And it is what it is. But that's the worst advice anyone can give you, and it's kind of why I'm very apprehensive of mentorship sometimes, and even accelerator programs.
Yeah. Yeah. I think anything that can help you clear your thoughts is a good way, but it can also give too much energy, too many voices in your head, right? When I coach leaders, especially I think in the corporate environment, but like you said, it happens in the startup too, which is they're just pulled in so many different directions. You know, this person's telling them to play bigger, this person's telling them to play smaller, this person's telling them to play that game. It's like you just really need to own your own time, talents, and voice, and they're very unique from the person next to you. So it's really, really hard for somebody to be able to dictate that. So I'm
Well,
curious
and
for you, having three entities, Cory, you've got three groups that you've been working on. Shedwell, I know, is 26 employees, did you say?
yeah, somewhere around there. I think that's
Yes.
probably accurate today.
Okay. So I am hearing from a lot of leaders, just engaging talent is a challenge pre-COVID, during COVID, yes, but curious what your thoughts are on that.
As far as us go, I think that my following on LinkedIn has got the right people gravitating towards us and kind of orbiting in our gravitational pull. So
Mhm.
we typically have, we are right now hiring a few account executives, and it's been a few weeks. I think we're looking for something very specific out of those reps, but typically, we have a few people looking to do anything that we're hiring for. So we've been very fortunate in engaging talent, but I do. It seems as though there's a big disconnect right now with the job seekers and the recruiters, and I talk about that a lot on social media because I think that's where personal branding and corporate branding even come from. People need to seek alignment, and people need to seek alignment with the restaurants that they choose to spend their time and money. And what you put in your mouth and body is very important. People need to seek alignment with whatever they do for prayer, meditation, clearing their mind. But people need to find alignment with the companies they want to work for as well. So I tell people, if they don't know the title of the job they want, their direct report, and what that person looks like and acts like, if they don't understand the type of culture they want to represent, that it's unfair. It's unfair to a company. It's unfair to that person. It yields terrible results. And once people can get that specificity and that focus and concentration and say, I want to do this for this type of person and this type of entity, it makes it really easy to hit your KPIs, and it makes it really easy to crush an interview. And if you get to know some of the employees on social media, and you can do that very strategically and tactfully, but you can know what to talk about. Maybe they love that you were in a band in high school. Maybe you shouldn't talk about that, right? And there are just little ways that you can eke your way. And so when I work with people, and I work with most people pro bono, I'm not a recruiter, I'm not a coach, and I don't want to be, and thank God I don't have to be, but I do talk to a lot of people about this. And everyone that's taken what I say seriously about the specificity has come back with superior results. People just aren't doing that, and people get desperate. And I talk a lot about just not coming across desperate. It's, if you need money to support your family so you don't die, that should be your little secret, right? You shouldn't
Mhm.
be sweating, and you shouldn't look hungry in that interview room, and you certainly shouldn't take anything less than you deserve, because people will not respect that and will take advantage of it. So I really do think, it goes back to the Oracle of Delphi, know thyself. I think that as a job seeker, or as a company looking for talent, it all comes back to that component in my perspective.
Yeah, I love the specificity, because I think too often, and I found this both for 20 years in corporate America, now almost 5 working on organizations, that often employees, it's like a third of them are actually engaged in their work. That means like 2/3 of the people were just sort of flushing money down the drain on. And that those employees are waiting for their boss, who's also busy, who has their own career, to somehow give them this like engraved invitation to this beautiful career. And if you don't own it, no one else will. Right.
Yeah, and it's really easy to take advantage of people that are doing the minimum for you. You're getting done the minimum. I mean, it's when people in the startup world talk about MVP, that should stand for minimum viable product. It's the same. People try to launch things that aren't frankly viable, and minimum should mean just that. And I think a lot of people take that to mean inferior or unready in some capacity. But yeah, I think as an MVP job seeker, you've got to be at the minimum of what someone could actually benefit from, and I think you've got to find that alignment, just for the excitement factor, and for the people can tell, you can tell when you're talking to a rep or to a waiter or something that doesn't want to be there. right? And it makes you
Yeah.
probably spend less money and have a less good time. So
Yeah, agreed. So let's get tactical for everybody, whether they're a leader or they're an individual contributor within a startup or a large organization. But there's an individual listening who says, "I want to be a part of advancing our culture and our people strategy within inside the organization." What's some tactical advice that you have for them?
so be humble, but not for be humble's sake. Here's why I say being humble is so important. It's actually very easy. You have to learn to delegate, whether you're the bottom or the top, and don't try to take too much on because you're not going to succeed at anything. I say often that perfection is the enemy of progress, but really just being part of something rather than trying to be something. And that the statement that we're greater than the sum of our parts really is applicable in a startup, in an organization, in a team that's going to win. And so you have to be humble to delegate. You have to be humble to say, I'm not good at this. I need help with that. And so that's where it gets easy. As soon as you say, you know what, I'm going to seek help from others, that in and of itself is humility, and it's humbling. And that step is what I see people getting to the next levels as soon as they have embraced that.
Yeah. And I think that advice, Corey, to be humble, really good because a lot of people think, oh, I'll be humble, but they in their head that means play small and wait for somebody to see me. But I think you can still be humble and move your ideas forward, right? To me, it's the key is self-awareness, knowing what you're really good at and knowing what you're not so good at, which by the way, all of us have that list. So just know that list, and then that will help you, in my experience, be humble but confident, right? Like you,
Well,
this is
I
my
want to
this is
give
my sweet zone, right?
100%. And something that I've learned recently as well is people that tell themselves that they're not good at things are not good at those things. People that open their mind to being wrong about that, which again is humility. But sometimes you can find some really cool things. I often said I was terrible at sales because for 20 years I was a waiter, and when people came in, they were hungry, they'd chosen the restaurant, and they happened to be placed in my section. I didn't have to sell them anything. I didn't need to tell them they should eat food. I didn't need to tell them they were hungry. And so I thought I was a bad salesperson. I had someone say, Cory, the best way to sell something is the anti-sale. Tell somebody it's not for you. So now I get on the phone with people and I say, listen, I'm sure you've got labor and compliance with the emerging labor laws all figured out, and you probably don't need shed wool. And they say, oh wait, I might, I think we do. And they say, well, we're this and that, and if you wanted to talk to somebody, I can put you in touch with them. But other than that, let's talk about you.
Yeah.
Where our pipeline is running over, it's overflowing right now
Yeah.
from that anti-sale. So it turned out I just needed to be pointed in the right direction. As soon as I opened my mind to maybe I'm not going to suck at sales forever. So I think sometimes people just need to stop telling themselves, these limiting statements of, I don't like this, I'm not good at that, I can't do this. When you believe that, it's true, and as soon as you stop, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, we need to have that growth mindset. I have twins, so it's a little science experiment. And one of my twins is very melancholic, kind of that Eeyore that always like, I'm not sure if I can do it. I'm like, well, then you're not going to be able to do it or do it really well. Like, and then my daughter, a little bit like me, just like makes it up, like, oh yeah, I can figure this out. So interesting perspective, but I believe the positivity is important for sure. Yeah. So Corey, what other leaders would you shout out that are doing great work as Winston Churchill said, like in the ring? Who's in the ring doing some really good work around people and culture?
So specifically around people and culture, um, well, I love my friend Bridget Hyacinth in the HR space, talks a lot about that. She's doing some really cool stuff, and her books have really helped me. Chitra Lelli, as well as is an author out of the UK that's talking a lot about that. Caroline Fernandez out of India, Paris Cutler out of Australia is doing some great work around that as well. Here in Chicago, a friend and colleague of mine, Soraya Hernandez, just passed on being the CEO of $1 billion organization. We're hoping to get her involved with one of my projects, but she's big in the D&I space, doing some really cool things there. My good friend Tomer Yogev has a company called the Big Joy Theory. He and his wife, Dr. Monica, are doing some great things around joy, specifically in the inclusion space, and they do a lot with diversity. And then a last person I'll shout out here in Chicago is Carolyn Leonard. She was the first woman to trade with her own money on the floor here in Chicago. She's just the fieriest, most successful, empowering woman, and she's got Diamond Angels that do investments into minority and female-owned companies at this point. She's just an absolute dynamo. So those are some people I would shout out in the space that I think are doing amazing work.
Great list. Thank you. That's a lot of people. Soraya, Tomer, Karen, Carolyn, Chit, and Bridget. Okay, so we'll get connected to them, include their LinkedIn. Let's do last question here, resources. What are some of your favorite resources that have helped you personally advance your thinking around humanity in the world of work?
So it's funny because I'm going to have two conflicting answers. So my real answer is just Google. I really just love everything Google, Google Calendars, YouTube. I've learned everything I know on YouTube.
Yeah.
I at one point realized there was no legitimate reason to say I don't know the answer to anything anymore, because I have something in my phone that knows the answer to everything. This was the secret that Henry Ford had back when he was building his engine, is he had people that could get him all the right answers. Now we're all walking around with it in our hip pocket. And so to me, Google is incredible. I love Google Docs. I love Google Sheets. Sometimes I'm scared with what they're doing with my data, but I kind of trust them. And so Google, Google, Google. With that said, I'm loving that a competitor of theirs as a search engine that I think is doing some wonderful things as well. And I try to remember to use them more often, but they're called Ecosia or Acacia, EOCASIA. And for every, I believe it's 30 queries that someone does on their engine, and it's a fantastic search engine, but they plant a tree, and they've planted over 1 million trees so far. And scientifically, energetically, this world needs many more trees planted, and they're, I think, on a mission to plant 100 million and then 1 billion trees or something around the planet. And so it really is one of those good organizations. And then every entrepreneur that I work with, I try to find ways to do the 1-for-2 model that Tom Shoes and Bombas Socks kind of introduced. But any company doing 1-for-2, I will support as a customer, I will support as an ambassador, and I will sing the praises from the rooftop. So that's not so much a resource, but a good way for people to think about the fact that where you spend your money matters. Buy local if you can, but when your money can support someone that can't support themselves in that regard, it's always just good energy that you can put out there.
Oh, completely agree. Well, thank you for all you're doing for planting seeds and trees in the world of culture and people.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in and hanging out with us.
For sure.